Hi everyone, Michael with Open Book Build here. So today I want to share with you a resource that you might not yet have heard of. I know it's new to me and I'm always looking for new ways to build a better home for less money. So there's a company that provides complete DIY solar power kits that include the design for your particular home and location, while also providing a very detailed installation guide for you to follow along as you install the system. Now, I've asked the company to join me in a Zoom call to talk about some of the big questions we might have regarding these solar kits and tell us a little bit more about how the DIY solar installation can save us up to $10,000 or more for those that want to tackle the project.
So I'm here with a company called GoGreenSolar, and I want to introduce to you guys Jeff Haas, Josh Roloffs, and Todd Evers, who will be joining us here shortly. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy day to talk about how owner builders might save money on a solar system for their new dream home. I was thinking maybe, Jeff, can you just kind of give us a brief overview of what you guys do?
Sure. We're Go Green Solar. We help homeowners who want to install solar on a do-it-yourself basis and save a significant amount of money doing so. So we help with everything from initial conversations about design. We finalize a design. We create a plan set that they can use for permitting processes. Not everyone needs a permit if it's an off-grid home, but anything tied to the grid, and many off-grid homes need a permit. So we create a plan set and we create an installation guide that's specific to their home and their equipment and the way their system's going to work. Some companies that are in this market just sort of throw an installation manual at you and you have to figure out how it's going to work for you. And then we sell the equipment and deliver the equipment to the home site. And then we're there for the customer for installation support and commissioning the system and as they move into operating the system.
That's great. Okay, perfect. So I know that, investing in solar is more than just financial, but do you guys have sort of a kind of a payback formula that you use that helps people kind of determine, how long? I know. So the first thing our owner builders are going to want to know is what's potentially their payback for the system. And
sure.
Yeah.
So it's a different outlook for grid homeowners who are connected to the grid and homeowners who aren't. If they're not connected to the grid, they may not have another option, or it can cost a lot of money to bring in utility power from a distance. But for grid tie homeowners, the good news is when you install yourself, you're saving a lot of money and you're reducing your costs. So that reduces your payback period. The basic formula is you take your total cost and then you subtract any rebates that you're eligible for. The federal tax credit is a big credit. It is going to decline, but it's still 26% for next year. So that's really a chunk of money. I know where I live, there are also state rebates, and sometimes they're even more local, like a municipality rebate. So you take your net cost after the federal and other rebates, and then you divide that by your monthly savings, and for whatever your electrical bill would have been, and you can estimate your monthly savings by looking at the cost of your power, to looking at your average monthly solar production times the kilowatt per kilowatt hour cost of your power.
Okay.
And they're actually on there. We have resources for the customer. There are online calculators, and we have resources to help them calculate their return on investment.
Yeah, I know some of our students. We have a few in Hawaii that their rates are really high, and it's a quick payback time. And I know it depends on that, and then obviously on however much how much the system will produce based on the amount of sunlight. We build houses in Cleveland, and we don't get a ton of sun, is like some other parts of the country, unfortunately. But so yeah, that'll be. I think that's good. We can. I'm going to put a link in this description here to you guys, your website. I know there's a ton of information, so anything we missed here, people can find that there as well.
5 to 7 years is a commonly used
Wow,
your payback period. So it's pretty quick.
that's great.
And then you can look forward to 25 years plus of useful life of your system. So it's a
Wow,
good investment.
good deal. Okay.
Yeah, and we do have a blog article that goes in a lot more detail here and has some examples on payback period and ROI. So we'll share that link with you if it's helpful, Michael.
Sounds great. Appreciate that, Josh. Okay. And then I guess what I would ask is, for the people that now, on a lot of things in building a house, we tell people not to provide their labor, but they always want to ask because everyone wants to kind of, gauge what things they might do themselves, providing their own labor because there's such a huge shortage right now. So I wanted to ask you guys if, the owner builder decides to provide their own labor to install the system, what kind of typical savings might they see from that?
The costs in solar are usually quoted in dollars per watt. So sometimes people will talk about equipment costs that way and installation costs. For grid-tied homes, those costs can be in the dollar per watt range or more, depending on what market you're in. I would say it's typically even more for off-grid homes because those are specialized installers. So if it was a 10,000 watt system, you'd be saving on the order of $10,000. You can also save some money. You're buying the equipment from us directly. So sometimes people are making some savings on the equipment itself because of the markup that a installer would add. There are some of our customers who will design and purchase the system with us, and then they'll contract. They might do part of the work themselves, do some of the physical, like the mounting the panels to the roof or the ground mount, and then have an electrical contractor do the final connections. So there are different ways that people go.
Okay, great. Wow, that's some big potential savings. I like that. So I know you guys, one of the unique things about you guys is that because you offer up a DIY system, you also do the design work for people and design the whole system. And actually, I guess, and you guys could probably speak about this too, there's a whole installation guide on how to put it all together, which is crazy detailed. I looked at one from you guys and I'm very impressed with that. So how do you guys actually do the system design? Is that something you're involved in, Josh, or who's part of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's really a cooperative process between our team, several members of the team and the customer. First, we're going to look at energy usage to get an idea of how much solar power it would take to offset your energy costs. If the solar is being installed on the rooftop, we need to start by looking at how much space is on the roof. And then there's usually things like vents that get in the way. There's also in the fire code, there's setbacks, so you can't fill up the whole roof. There's some space typically required for fire setbacks. So we'll look at measurements from a satellite image. We'll come up with a layout. Typically the customer does need to go up and measure and kind of verify to make sure, because some of these things can be hard to see from a computer. So we're really working with the customer and our team. If batteries are being added, we're going to look at the appliances or circuits that are going to be backed up by batteries. We have to make sure that you have enough battery storage to power these both, through the night for a long enough period of time, and instantaneously you need enough power to run everything at once. It's on the backup system. So if batteries are being added, that's something that we would need to look at and kind of work with the homeowner to get a list of the appliances they need to back up.
Okay. From if someone's building a new house and they have a full set of plans, would that be enough? Obviously you need to know the orientation of the house on the lot, probably with the, north, south, and east and west, but would that be enough for you guys with the set of plans to start on the design?
Yeah, if we had building plans for new construction, we would be able to look at how many panels we can fit. We could send it to the professional engineer to make sure the structure can hold the weight if that's required or a concern at all. The electrical service, we need to know the size of the electrical service to make sure that we can tie in the amount of solar to know how we're going to connect the solar into the electrical service, because that's another limitation. But yeah, building plans would typically be enough if it's a new construction. If it's an existing home, we're usually asking for, measurements, go up and even measure rafters, size and spacing of the rafters. We'll ask for photos of all kinds of stuff for existing homes.
Okay. I know I saw something on your website and I've always told people about the service for the new homes. You know, it's such a little cost to go from like 100 amps to 150 to 200. The open book build house, we went to a 200. I love this idea of having expansion opportunities. And I didn't even think about the solar idea, obviously charging cars and that kind of thing. But how do you guys recommend, what size service would you recommend so that you can incorporate?
Yeah, it's a good point. A 200 amp service is going to give you the ability to add a 40 amp solar breaker before changing anything or before we have to change the way it connects or derating the main breaker or anything like that. So that's a pretty substantial system. You know, sometimes houses will need a bigger system, but typically a 200 amp service would be a good bet for solar. There's also something called a solar ready service panel, which allows you to add even more solar power. It just has an oversized bus bar. So it's a standard service panel, but there's a bigger bus bar, and there might be like an extra breaker slot for solar or something that makes it easier. The solar ready panel can just make it easier to hook up solar and increase the amount of solar you can hook up before you have to, you know, look at things like changing the way you connect or upgrading service. So if it's a new construction, I think looking for a solar ready 200 amp panel, which is going to have usually a 225 amp bus bar in it, that the cost for the solar ready panel won't be a big increase, and it'll save you a lot of hassle and money and time down the road.
Okay, so I know there. How you doing, Todd?
Doing good.
All right, good to see you. Good to meet you.
As well.
So you know, I know this is kind of a big undertaking for anyone who does want to try and do the installation themselves. Obviously, you guys provide a ton of guidance through you know, documentation on how to go step by step to install it. But if somebody gets into kind of a tough situation and they're not sure what to do, what kind of support do you guys offer while they're installing?
Yeah, we have tech support over the phone from experienced professionals. They're people who have installed solar hands-on for years, so they have hands-on experience and can consult on that. You know, we also have close partnerships with the manufacturers. So if we need to escalate something, if we can't solve a problem or if we're not getting service, we'd work with our manufacturer partners. You know, and also you mentioned the installation guides, which include a materials list that you need to buy. So we try to kind of give enough resources from the beginning. So hopefully the installation is as easy and as smooth as possible.
Okay. All right. I know, you know, a big part of the installation is that final tie-in to the main panel, which is one thing that I hate going near. Just for me, I'm just not an electrical guy. You know, I love building houses and every piece of it, but I try and stay away from that panel. It really scares me. Do you guys, you know, is that something that you would say maybe leave that to the licensed electrician, or how does that work on this type of a system?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, you know, working in a main electrical panel, it involves, it requires some level of experience with electrical work. You know, so sometimes our customers are like retired contractors, or they have some electrical experience and they do it themselves. A lot of our customers do hire a licensed electrician for that part of the hookup. Solar can connect into a breaker in your main service panel. Sometimes it connects into a sub panel, and sometimes it connects between the main service panel and the utility meter, just depending on the size of the system, kind of existing electrical that's there, and how we need to connect. So depending on the connection method, it could be more or less complicated. You know, going into a sub panel, it's a lot easier. You don't have live power, as opposed to in between the main panel and utility meter. You probably need an electrician. You also need the utility company to come out and pull the meter, you know, and shut off service. Well, that's happening. So yeah, a lot of our customers will work with a licensed electrician. Another thing that might come up and you want to look out for is sometimes the permit for solar, or an electrical permit, in really strict areas, they require a licensed electrician beyond the permit. So they're going to want a contractor's number. So if you're thinking about a system, that would be a good thing to check, is go look at the permit application. And usually these are online. Look at the application for a solar or electrical permit. You can probably just Google, you know, like my county or city building department solar permit, and it should come up. and see if they require anything like, do they want a licensed contractor? Are they asking for a contractor's license number on the permit? Or are they requiring, structural engineering or some other service that you might have to add? Those are just things you want to account for so you don't get surprised by those costs later down the road.
That makes complete sense. Okay. So one thing I've thought about, we build houses in Cleveland. I mentioned you guys. Obviously, we get quite a bit of snow. The one thing that I've thought about doing, and maybe on the next house we build, is creating a ground mount system so that we could get the panels. We're not kind of constrained by the roof layout and where the roof is and how the house, kind of orientates with the sun. We could, get them directly, south or whatever's the best angle at that point, and also be able to clean the panels if it snows and there's any kind of buildup. Is that something that you guys work with people doing as well, or is it mostly roof mount?
Yeah, definitely. We do ground mounts all the time. I think everything you mentioned there for the ground mount makes a ton of sense. So if you were to use the existing structure for a roof mount, it'll be a little bit more economical because you're using the structure that's already there. With a ground mount, you will end up having to buy some steel pipe, Schedule 40 pipe, and some concrete. But definitely it allows you to get that angle up to get the better production and face it right towards the sun. So definitely.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. I know, this whole battery storage thing is really cool to me. The idea of, a lot of people have the backup generators for power. I think it's just really neat to be able to have that battery powered backup that feeds the battery, and you can use it. I know you guys have some things of, we can use it in peak times and maybe at night or when the power goes out. Can you guys talk a little bit about that and what that option is for people?
Josh, did you want to start on that, or do you want me to take that one?
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, definitely. We sell battery-based systems for sure. I usually will have an interview with the customer and figure out what loads they're trying to run, and if it's just for backup power or if it's for all the time off-grid. Basically, we just look at the main appliances and see how many kilowatt hours per cycle. Sometimes that's a nightly thing. Sometimes they want to run it for multiple days in case of bad weather or the utilities out, whatever. But yeah, it's usually pretty straightforward. We just try to keep it to essential loads. It adds up pretty quick. You don't want to be running air conditioning off a battery bank, but we can definitely do things like well pumps, garage doors, TVs, phone chargers, refrigerators, things like that. And then right now, what we focus on is either a sealed, maintenance-free AGM battery or lithium batteries are real popular.
Okay. Do you do much off-grid type stuff, or is it all
That's what I focus on. Yeah, I mainly do off-grid system.
Okay. Nice.
So, for an off-grid system, the battery is, you have to have a battery for your off-grid system.
Right, mandatory.
For the grid tie systems, it's for power outages and backup mostly. And as you mentioned, there are cases that power rates used to be more expensive during the day and cheaper at night, but the utility companies switched to that because of solar. So now it's more expensive at night because you can't provide your own power with solar. So battery systems allow you to store power during the day and use it or sell it back at night when it would cost more.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. So it sounds like a standalone system and off-grid system would cost a lot more, right? To have that storage that you need, I'm guessing.
Definitely. Yeah. Once you get into batteries, you can easily double the system cost. It adds up quick.
Okay.
And you mentioned a generator that, these systems will also interact with the generator. One of the nice things about having a battery backup system for your home with solar is that the solar can help recharge it, during that outage period. But if you're concerned about longer outages or you need to run heavier equipment, as Todd was saying, you can also make a generator part of that system. So you could have solar, a generator, both working with a battery bank and a smart inverter system to run your home during an outage.
Okay.
Yeah, and if the system is fully off-grid, a generator is usually required, because you're going to have periods where there's maybe cloud for several days, maybe you get a snowstorm that covers your panels. So if you're completely off grid, usually a backup gas generator is a part of the system just by default to make sure you have a secondary power source.
Good to know. Okay.
I've lived off grid since 2008, and I can tell you I've never made it through a single winter without having to use my generator.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. Good to know. Okay. So for those guys that are tied into the grid, you guys get involved in this net metering thing where you can sell power back to the utility company?
Yeah, of course. And that's part of your, that's why when we talked about our payback period, that's an important factor in the payback period, because you not only are you're offsetting your electrical consumption, but in many areas you can sell back to the utility. And if you're producing power during the day, and then you can sell it back, and then you can use it at night, and the two are offsetting. So if net metering is available where you live, and in most places it is now, you definitely want to be utilizing that.
Okay. And then just when you're looking at this investment, I know people are saying, whatever part we're looking at installing in our new house, we want to kind of know how long it's going to last. What are typical lifespans, you guys, for the parts of this, and what can people expect for that, for how long they might work without having to replace pieces of it?
Inverters have typically, any grid tie inverter has a 10-year warranty or longer. N-phase microinverters and Solar Edge power optimizers, they have 25-year warranties. They're located up under the panels on the roof, so they want to match that warranty to the panel. And most solar panels will have 25-year warranty. That's industry standard, and they last longer than that. So I have some neighbors in my neighborhood that have panels from, I think, the late 70s, early 80s, and they still work. They have 64-watt panels.
Wow.
So you definitely get your money back, especially considering price of equipment these days, and how many years it's going to last. By the end of its lifespan, it's paid for itself several times over.
Good deal.
Yeah, and batteries, battery lifespan, it really depends on, are the batteries being used every day? Or are they used just occasionally? So a lot of that's depending on the application. If it's a lithium battery, a good lithium battery will have a 10-year warranty, and they can typically last 10 years, if not longer, provided you're not cycling too deep and too often. Lead acid battery lifespan, it can really vary a lot because it depends on the application. There's different types of lead acid batteries. There's sealed and wet flooded. And there's also kind of different grades where you have more like commercial grade batteries. So anywhere from a few years to, 10 years for a lead acid battery, depending on the type and how it's being used.
Okay.
And the very best time to install solar on a roof is when you're putting on a new roof, because you can integrate the flashings and the attachments in a way that's much friendlier to the roof, and then your roof is going to last for that 30-year period, or however long your roof is, depending on what kind of roof type you have. So that's the very best time. It's for new construction, for your owner builders. If they want solar, the very best time to do it is while they're building their new home.
So on that, Jeff, so we're going to get our roof decking on, and before our actual roofer shows up, we're actually putting the attachment onto the OSB or the plywood before we start laying underlayment, or how would you guys recommend? What's the timing on that stuff? So
it's integrated into, if it was a regular shingle process, you'd integrate it into the shingling.
Okay.
Yeah, as you lay out, of course, the shingles, flashing shingle over it. So right as you go up the roof, you're putting them on.
Okay.
If they choose a metal roof, you'd install the metal roof completely first, and then go back and do the solar.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, depending on the type of roof, I'm guessing composition shingle is most common for you, or for most people in most areas. There's basically a flashing that slides between courses of shingles, and then there's a leg bolt that goes into the truss. If it's a metal roof, there's different types of metal roofs. You know, you have corrugated, you have standing seam, all these different profiles. So there's different clamps that match up with this specific roof type. And like Jeff mentioned, it would be finished. I mean, you can always install on a finished roof. So it's not like you need to change your construction practices to do solar. Most of these products are designed to be retrofit, but it could save some labor and time just by doing it together if it's a shingle roof.
And it's a little bit more it's a little more shingle friendly if you do it, as Todd was saying, course by course, than putting it in afterwards.
You don't have to lift up the courses, and you don't have to worry about, is there a nail in the way that you have to, cut into the flashing to fit it around the nail. So it does make it easier.
Right.
Okay.
And you can also see the nailing pattern on your sheathing, so you know where the truss is, where the top course of sheathing is exposed before you cover it with shingles. So as you're putting the flashing there, you can kind of just bring it right over and go centered on that truss, drive it in. There's no question.
Okay. Great. Man, we covered a lot of ground, you guys. Is there anything else you want to talk about that you think owner builders might want to know about a system that would help them make a decision or whatever else? I appreciate you guys taking the time today. I mean, this is huge. I know you guys are busy. I always say we don't have any relationship business with you guys. I just saw what you guys offer, and I think it's pretty cool. And I think our whole idea is, and I think we're running out a little bit of time here, but I think our idea is to give people the tools and the information so they can make a choice whether they want to do the installation themselves or buy the materials and the installation stuff from you and choose to do parts of it, the parts that's easier for them, and then maybe have somebody else do the parts that are more complicated. So I think that's huge that you guys offer that. It's huge. So
Hey, Michael.
My only recommendation is don't wait. A lot of people drag their feet and take years and years. Solar is all about payback. And so make the decision and do it now. Prices have dropped by 75% over the last 10 years. So it's a no-brainer.
I love it. And you guys,
one thing to remember is the process can take a lot of time. Even just getting a permit from your county or city, getting the utility to approve, any of these steps can take weeks, and you add them up, and so it can take a month or two even to get through the approval process if you're hooking up to the grid. So just keep that time frame in mind.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good, guys. Well, again, guys, I really appreciate you guys taking the time, and I'm going to put a couple links in the description so that if people want to get a hold of you guys or see what you guys offer on your website, they can come check it out, and we'll go from there.
Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Michael.